I discussed it with our police chief, and we made the decision that as long as they were only selling to cardholders, state cardholders, and as long as they were only selling marijuana, we wouldn't shut them down. And so when word sort of spread in the community, in the cannabis community, over 5 or 6 years, they just grew. And they grew to about 80. And then I issued a moratorium in, I'm not sure what year, at about 80, I issued a moratorium. Kind of under political pressure. See, I said that word political isn't bad. So after it reached 80 and the hue and cry and the number of council members said enough is enough, and even though I'm kind of laissez-faire and believe in what the market decides, at about 80 we issued a moratorium.
So you have how many right now?
Well, now our new ordinance is in effect. That is winnowing it down to 20 and then 5, 20 plus 5. And so working with the state has said you can stay open if you haven't been denied. And so the clerk has been reviewing the applications. I'm sorry, I have a long-winded answer. So we will be in the process of getting to 20 plus 5. It is a guess that we are now at about 6. I was going to say 15. So every week, every day, because as the clerk issues his denials, and yet he's issuing all his denials before he's going to issue his approvals. He's going to issue his 20 approvals, I guess, in one big clump. So the 6 that are remaining are people that have applied and not been denied yet.
And what's happened to all those other ones that are no longer there?
They are now
They're out of business. There's no employment there anymore.
They're essentially empty storefronts again. Or some have been converted. Some, I think I've noticed, are selling other products, growing, hydroponics and whatnot, but most are becoming empty storefronts again.
And if they're empty, then those buildings will be available for the new ones coming in. Because you were talking about that they're really searching for buildings.
Assuming they're properly zoned, yes. But obviously we'll have, some 60 extra spots.
Councilman Reiner?
Yes, Mayor, question for you. When you initially started the program, and not talking about the small locations, the selling locations, when you began to look into the idea of having the major facilities, was there ever consideration of trying to keep those facilities within a industrial-like combined area for their size?
Are you talking about the grow?
Yes.
Yeah, the grow, they are restricted. They're unlimited in terms of the number if they can identify an industrial zone that they would fit into. So we haven't said we can only have 2 or we can only have 8 or 10. As many processors and growers, and I think the previous speakers talked about getting it out of the neighborhoods, getting it out of residential. That was a big issue in Lansing because the law allows up to 72 plants. And I don't know about Taylor, but in Lansing, you put 72 plants in a home, in an average ranch in Lansing, and depending on the size of what a plant is, you basically have a greenhouse. And this was happening, and we had a couple fires in Lansing that were serious. And I also helped work with the council to pass an ordinance putting a public safety. Basically, you can't go against state law. You can't say no grows in the home, which I think is unfortunate. Because I think 72 plants is outlandish. Let me just be clear. I've said it, I'll be happy to go on the record. 72 plants per home, but it's state law. Okay, I mean, we can say we don't like it, but it's ludicrous, and you should talk to your state legislators, and the way that passed, it's insane. In my view, 72 plants in a house, I'm sorry if anybody disagrees, but most homes cannot really accommodate 72 plants and human beings. So, I think that the previous speaker is right, that when you professionalize it, and you allow this kind of perfection, and look, this is big business. You've seen Colorado, you've seen the pictures, you've seen the grows. I want those grows in my city. That's your decision if you want them in the industrial zone. And when that happens, they sort of naturally will put the mom and pop people growing 72 plants in their home. If you're growing 3 plants, you're really a caregiver, and it's you and somebody who has cancer in your family or something. That's one thing. But I don't go for these commercial operations that are neighborhood-based. And so I think the upshot of you doing this and grappling with it and the stink and the problem, those are going to go away. But you could also look at Lansing's ordinance, which is a very good public safety ordinance, about if you do have a home grow, since we can't make it illegal under state law, you can make sure it's done safely, you can require inspections, you can have the fire marshal out there, you can do electrical inspection, because part of the problem is they were overloading their home-based electrical systems and creating a really hazardous situation.
Thank you.
Any additional questions from Mayor Venero or Councilor Romero? Okay. We will go on to public comment. Just a quick poll. How many of the interested parties plan to come up and speak today? If you could raise your hand. Oh. Okay, a few. All right, we will, each person would be allowed 3 minutes, just to make sure that we give everyone a fair amount of time. Yeah, we'll do that one. So we'll have every 3 minutes for each person, and I'll, our attorney, Dave Greco, will speak on it.
Yes, I just wanted to address, going along with Councilperson Pat's question before and clarifying something that the mayor had indicated. I assume when Lansing had 80 dispensaries and was choosing not to enforce, that was before the Medical Marijuana Facilities Act. So when I described earlier the Medical Marijuana Act that allowed for personal possession of marijuana, it really created a gray area on how you get it, and municipalities were attacking that or dealing with it in different ways. So it certainly was a little bit like the Wild West about everyone trying to figure out what's going on. So when the mayor had indicated, well, this was set up and then this was struck down, it's because individuals that were, ever since that act was passed, there was a push in the industry to try and make a commercial business out of it, which that original act really doesn't have that framework. So there were constant test cases for the municipalities, for the courts, that kept getting struck down because they were trying to figure out how to have a club, how to have a lounge, how to be able to sell it to anyone that had a medical marijuana card. And there's a number of decisions from the Michigan Supreme Court that indicate, the certain, basically say, look, this really isn't a commercial act. So what you're considering now and what Lansing is dealing with now is where a commercial framework has been established by the state. So that kind of changed the game on what municipalities were doing and not doing with regard to regulation and all of those things. So I just wanted to point that out because what was going on was if you were some municipalities, I think we've all heard, like in Ann Arbor, it's been a civil infraction rather than a crime since the 70s or something, of possession of a certain amount. So some communities, perhaps Lansing, Ypsilanti is another one, did pass where they could have dispensaries before this newest act was passed. And they were choosing, like the mayor had indicated, on a local level to either enforce or not enforce certain things. Because, if the police aren't going to come in and arrest you, well, then you can operate your business. And if the ordinance was passed by that municipality to allow it, then it was being allowed. So we're kind of in a different framework now because there is a commercial act statute framework that the state has provided as guidance to everyone. So I just want to make that clarification for you.
Councilman Woolley.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think I'm okay by asking this question, but just by a show of hands, and if you're not comfortable raising your hand, then by all means don't. But I'm just curious, how many Taylor residents are here tonight? Can you raise your hand if you're from Taylor? Thank you.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and go into public comment. Again, we'll allow each speaker 3 minutes, just to make sure we're respecting everyone's time tonight here. So is there any interested parties who'd like to address council tonight?